It's always a good day when classic games get re-released for modern platforms. Announced just a few months back, Tomba Special Edition is finally available on PC, PS4, PS5, and Switch, and it's exactly what the title says. A refreshed edition of the classic PS1 platformer. If you were expecting some dramatic changes or a brand new coat of paint, this remaster will not appeal to you. This is Tomba almost exactly as you remember it, or maybe have forgotten about until now. That's not to say there aren't some improvements, though everything added here takes the form of supplemental additions rather than substantial changes. You won't have new controls or radically overhauled level design, but filtering options, an incredible rewind option, and even the ability to save anywhere with a convenient menu. It's a good remaster, even if I do wish there was some additional content added. I'll keep the gameplay portion of this review short, as most people interested in Tomba will already know whether or not they enjoy the game. Tomba was developed by Tokuro Fujiwara and his team at Whoopee Camp following a departure from Capcom in 1995. Fujiwara left the company as he wanted to create new and original titles, something he didn't think was possible at Capcom. In developing Tomba, Fujiwara decided to stick with a 2D perspective as he felt it would be straightforward enough for players to understand. This old-school style also allowed his team to create different methods for extending the game's length. This method took the form of an event system, which is pretty similar to stars in Super Mario 64. While I was obviously familiar with Tomba, having been 10 years old when it released, I never played it until this remaster. I thought it was going to be a simple side-scrolling game, but that's not the case. Tomba is often considered one of the first open-world games, and while that doesn't quite explain how things play out, you do get the sensation that Whoopee Camp was pushing the envelope of what was possible with 2D design here. In the starting area, you could pretty much go right until you hit a dead end, then figure out how to climb into the background and finish that level. The rest of the game will require you to trek back and forth like a Metroidvania, collecting new power-ups and remembering where to use them later. I do think a lot of what Tomba does is incredibly innovative for 1998, but I'm simply not the biggest fan of the execution. Before you start collecting items that let you fast travel everywhere, simply getting from point A to point B can be a chore. You'll be exploring the same few locations a bunch of times until things click, and even then, the event system that gives you goals is never explicitly clear. I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I needed to use a walkthrough to even make much headway. This remaster doesn't change any of that, and is actually closer to a straight port than what I expected. I'm perfectly fine with that in principle, because I don't think older games should be tweaked too much. Fans of Tomba loved it specifically for its sometimes obtuse design, and altering that would create a more streamlined and less engaging experience. I can't tell you the last time I was lost in a modern game, but Tomba had me stumbling about for an hour or so trying to get my bearings. So does that mean I don't recommend Tomba Special Edition? Truthfully, this release is for the fans mostly, and on that front, it delivers quite well. The experience is the same as it always was, weirdly long load times included, though there is a new arranged soundtrack to spice up the background music a bit. You also finally get 60 FPS playback, helping the game feel smoother. Where this remaster becomes more palatable for modern audiences is with features such as its rewind mechanic. Taking a page out of Nintendo's emulators for Switch Online, with the press of a left trigger, you can rewind back roughly 30 seconds to undo any choices you may have made. It's fantastic for the boss fights, which are pretty unimaginative and often tedious to get through. If you miss throwing a pig in a bag, you can just rewind and try again. There are also some events where if you do things out of order, you can screw yourself, and the rewind is there to help. The only other big gameplay-altering addition in Special Edition is the ability to save anywhere. By pressing the right trigger, you'll access a menu that lets you tweak various options including screen size, CRT filter, and the ability to save. The screen options include a 4x3, a pixel-perfect one, and one of those horrendous stretched widescreen things. In the original Tomba, to save, you'd have to find signposts in villages or at the start of areas, but no more. Just pop open the new menu, save anywhere, and you're golden. What I really would have liked to see is some kind of walkthrough included in-game, because that would have helped immensely. Having guide arrows or altering dialogue to be more explanatory doesn't make sense, but there have been other re-releases that have included hint systems within them. The Secret of Monkey Island Special Edition comes to mind. It would have slotted in nicely with the save system and this re-release's other big feature, special bonus feature content. Much like classic DVD and Blu-ray releases, Tomba's Special Edition has a small museum option with various kinds of special features. The best is probably the video with the developers discussing the history of Tomba's development, but full scans of the Japanese, American, and European jewel cases and manuals are also here. There's a smattering of concept art and other neat details, which feels appropriate for a re-release celebrating this game's 26th anniversary. Much like I said with the walkthrough, I do think it would have been great to get some more behind-the-scenes stuff here. Maybe some new interviews with the development staff, or even a retrospective about the impact Tomba had on the PS1. The game has taken on an almost mythological status over the years, and having a reflection of that would be great. Even still, I can't say what was provided by limited run games is truly lackluster in any regard. The reason I'm not overly enthusiastic is that Tomba simply didn't hit for me like it has for its rabid fanbase. I wanted to enjoy the game more than I did, but its experimental nature didn't feel entirely cohesive to me. This is a similar reaction to what I had with Night Dive Studios' recent remaster of P.O.'d. Tomba is a far better game than that, but it's also something that feels a bit antiquated. Don't let my naysaying stop you from grabbing this remaster if you're a big Tomba fan, though. This special edition re-release runs well, looks and sounds great, and has just enough little tweaks to make it the definitive way to play Whoopee Camp's retro classic. If you're new to the party, however, make sure you temper your expectations a little.